All right, welcome back. So we're in Module 11 now. Now, one of the things that'll be different about this module is that all the previous ones corresponded to a single chapter. This one is two chapters. We're dealing with chapter 11 and 12. So, with that said, it may seem like a lot to cover. It's not a lot to cover. Conceptually, it's fairly straightforward. The homework that I've got for you in this module is not a high hurdle to get over. It's just going to take some time to get through it. Okay? So it's not a rough or difficult task, other than the fact that it just takes a while. It's all going through stuff that's directly from Microsoft associated with the concepts tied to one of the certification exams for Microsoft Server. So with that said, let's jump into this and we'll pop through these two chapters and that should go take care of the homework and the discussions, etc. So in Active Directory, we've got a variety of different services that we have the ability to implement, manage, etc. using our roles interface that we've dealt with before. So essentially we can go in, let me scroll down. I think I've got we can go in and pick another role. So whether it's ADLDS, if we're dealing with any of these different roles, we just go in and enable the role. So if we think about this, when we installed server, it wasn't a very heavy install. There's considerably more there than we would see in Win 10 or Win 11. But compared to what we could have had to do if everything was enabled, that would be a massive install. It would take quite a bit of time and a lot of configuring to get it fully implemented. Now, we'll look at it as these roles are a la carte. You pick and choose what you want. And each one has a different purpose. And in this one, we're dealing with lightweight directory services. So with that said, scroll down a little bit. So here's the one that we're dealing with here. So it's like, what are we going to do? Well, we can go create replicas of other instances. So I can replicate Active Directory from another system. There's a lot that we can do relative to LDF. Now, I've got a walkthrough as part of the homework. So I've got a variety of different Microsoft supplemental information or documentation associated with these concepts. So when it comes to Microsoft and the way Microsoft does things, in business, we may not always do things the Microsoft way, because Microsoft is very particular in how they do things. Whereas in business, I want to save money, I want to be efficient, whatever it may be. And so we'll look at it from two perspectives. There's the way that industry may do things, and then there's the Microsoft way. when it comes to a Microsoft certification, we need to look at things from the Microsoft perspective, or the Microsoft way. And that's why I'm pointing you to that documentation. Now, along with that, I've got the second video is somebody that, if you're in the 2792 course, you will have seen. You might say, well, am I supposed to know this guy? That's Torrin Thomas. No, I said there's the Microsoft way, and then there's, in many cases, the way everybody else does things. Microsoft has a variety of people that are their go-tos. And in IT, one of the things that we need to do is to stay current in the industry and what's taking place. So with that said, one of the things we can do is attend the different seminars, conferences, webinars, whatever is out there, to see what's new, what can make my job easier, what can make my life a better quality of life, whatever it may be. I'd hate to compare it to a dog chasing his tail, but in IT, we're always catching up with the latest and greatest. Now, in business and industry, we want to be out in that pack that's running in the lead. We don't want to be the first one. We don't want to be ahead of everybody else, because they're the ones that find issues before the rest. But we want to not be at a disadvantage to where competition is 5 steps ahead of us in the industry. So Torrin Thomas is one of those individuals that is a great knowledge base relative to Microsoft and Windows Server. So you'll see him in the next video, and he'll deal with these concepts from chapter 11. Okay. Now, we have the ability to make copies of things. We've got to authenticate, whether it's the system, the user, whatever it may be. The locations of the services themselves, they can be site-specific or they could be cloud-based, depending on what we're doing. And that's just depending on what's happening. Now, sometimes it could be we've got an Active Directory site, and we're applying rules based on the site itself. We would look at things geographically or something along those lines. But let's look at it. We've got, let's say, a London site, Canada site, Seattle site. So we've got different places in play, and I may want to let London have access to Canada and Canada have access to London. There's one relationship back and forth, and there's a trust that will exist between the two in many cases. Much like we would have trusts. I trust being safe in my home. I trust the resources in my home, most of them to a degree. I trust the animals within my home. So there's trust that exists that in many cases we take it for granted because it's a day-to-day thing. Now, let me jump over to the next section, part 2, because we start talking about the trusts themselves, and there's directionality with these trusts. Okay, who's trusting whom? It makes a big difference. I could have a one-way trust, or I could have a two-way trust. All right. the one-way trust, it could be that I'm trusting this domain with my resources. They're not trusting with me. They're getting my resources. So it depends on what we're wanting to do on the directionality of the trust, or whether it's a two-way trust. Okay. So with that said, we've got different types of trusts, and most of them are straightforward in what they are. Okay. So it's not all that brutal. We've dealt with different ports in the past. So different activities within the system will utilize different network ports for whatever they do. And this is just showing you what the ports are. Now, having specific ports for what's taking place allows us to control those activities. So if I'm not using Kerberos, I can shut those ports down, and there is no Kerberos back or forth. Conceptually, same thing with all the rest of them. It's not a brutal module, aside from the fact, like I said, it's a time thing. All right, so just put the time in going through the read on these, and in the homework you have a total of 4 different learning paths to go through. It's straightforward. It's not brutal. You just work your way through the learning paths. Each one takes somewhere around an hour if you take your time to go through it. And there's a knowledge check at the end. As long as you complete the knowledge check, get 100% on it, grab a screenshot of that knowledge check. There's 4 different total ones to take care of. So I would need 4 different knowledge checks. So it's 25 points or 25%. Excuse me. Of the homework for each one of the knowledge checks. 10 points for the homework, so that's 2.5 points per screenshot for the knowledge checks. If you don't get 100% the first time you go through it, just run back through it again. If you have extra time, you can walk through this trust, but we can't actually complete it because we've only got one domain. It's as simple as that. So I'll see you in the next module.